All right, I think we're about ready to get started. So, thank you all so much for joining us for Remote-a-thon today. As a reminder, Remote-a-thon is a series of interactive talks with leaders in customer success, sales enablement, and knowledge management. We have a ton of sessions throughout the rest of the summer, so please check them out. All sessions are recorded and will be available to watch later today and beyond. So, thank you all so much for joining us for today's session. We're super excited to have Mariah Caraway joining us. She is a patient care specialist at Hims and Hers, and she's going to be talking to us a little bit about how her remote first team uses Guru to build a knowledge management strategy. And then Mariah, if you want to go to the next slide. Uh, my name's Sydney. I'm on the product marketing team at Guru, and I have had the honor of working with Mariah to prepare for today's talk. So I will kick things over to her to introduce herself, and then we'll go ahead and get started.
Hi, like Sydney said, my name is Mariah Caraway. Definitely named after Mariah Carey, if that's what you're thinking. My dad saw the opportunity and seized it. And I've been working at Hims and Hers for about a year and a half, back when it was still just Hims. And what I do as a patient care specialist is I tend to our customers in our secure messaging center. I do kind of a little bit of training. I'm kind of there whenever people need me, always willing to kind of help out and learn everything. But my favorite thing I do is definitely Guru. I manage our Guru instance with the help from a few members, but I am the key champion of Guru, and I honestly wouldn't have it any other way.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks, Mariah. Throughout today's session for the attendees, we'd love your participation. So we'll have a couple polls throughout that we're really excited to, hear your answers to. And if you have any questions throughout the session, please post those in the Zoom chat and we will answer all of those at the end. So to get started, Mariah, I know your team has had a pretty unique journey when it comes to knowledge management. Can you tell us a little bit about how Hims and Hers got started with Guru?
Yeah, so this predates me, but back when we first got started as Hims, we didn't have any type of knowledge management system. It was kind of all over the place, mostly through emails and Slack. And then a few months into it, the CX team got more developed and they decided that Guru was kind of the best option for us as a team that has two headquarters teams, one in San Francisco and then one in Kitchener-Waterloo in Canada, as well as two different call center locations in Oregon and Montana. We decided that we definitely needed something, but when we first started using Guru, it wasn't quite slowly put together. We put all the knowledge in there. Since being a direct-to-consumer company, we definitely didn't have the time to waste when putting in all the knowledge for all of our agents. So it's gone very interestingly. And since the initial start of Guru, it's definitely changed into something really different, which I will get into as I kind of talk a little bit about the background of our company and then how we started with Guru. So first, if you guys aren't familiar with Hims and Hers, we are a health and wellness company that focuses on telemedicine. So if, say, you have a partner, friend, anyone that is having some hair loss, and it might not be covered by insurance, and the medication can be expensive, and sometimes, it just doesn't work out with your primary care physician, you can always go to Hims and Hers, and we have where you can put your interest for a product and you'll place an order, and then you'll kind of go through this consultation with a provider, whether it be a doctor or a nurse practitioner, and they'll kind of give you feedback. You'll have a discussion. If they decide it's a good treatment for you, then we will be sending it to you every month, or the cadence that it is depending on what the product is. And we also have a lot of non-prescription products, which one of my personal favorites is on the slide, which is our sleep gummies, which have really come in clutch during this whole work from home new schedule situation. And we've been around since 2017, and hers came a year after Him's, which was in 2018, just shortly after I started. So our use of Guru is between our two headquarters teams, like I said, in Canada and here in SF. And then we have our call center agents. And then we have my favorite group of people, which are not maybe the most active Guru users, but they have the best name, which is the Friends of CX. And that includes people that are in our Guru instance that aren't part of support, because as of right now, only support has access to our Guru, since it's all about the customer, anything we need that touches upon the customer. But included in the Friends of CX are some of our community managers that help out our influencers, some of our telemedicine team, as well as some of our operations teams. So the initial setup from Guru was very interesting, but it led the cards to be really different from what they are now. Many cards only had a couple of sentences, like a question as the title, and then a one-liner answer. And while it was great to have that information in there, it made it a little hard to search up, as well as kind of cluttering the space with a lot of one-off questions, since even related questions weren't around, linked, or anything. And there was a lack of relevant tagging. While we did have tagging, it wasn't necessarily super helpful. If the title said hair loss shampoo, the tags would be hair loss, hair, shampoo. And while those are helpful tags, but since Guru's search optimizations for goes based off title tags and then what's in the body, since you already have it in the title, you don't need it in the tags. And that led to less fruitful searches and kind of a little bit more frustration when it came to looking for an article that talks about maybe like broken shampoo seals or something along those lines. And we had very few examples. We had a lot of what you need to do, but maybe not how to do it. And I know, like for myself, there's a few things that I very rarely do, but when I do actually have to kind of go through this process, I definitely need a refresher. So being told like, oh yes, this needs to happen is great, but while we didn't quite have that, this is the step-by-step how you do it, just a quick little refresh. So what did this ultimately lead to? A mess. It led to shoulder tapping inside the HQ offices. It led to a lot of unanswered questions from our call center agents. And it led to just a little bit of frustration when it came to searching up information as well as updating information.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Mariah. So now for our audience, we're curious, who on your team is interacting with customers or needing to answer customer questions outside of that traditional support or customer experience role? So we're going to launch this poll. There we go. And this is a multiple selection poll. So if there's multiple teams at your company that are interacting with customers, we'd love to hear that. So you guys can go ahead and cast your votes. All right, so operations, marketing, product. A lot of marketing and product.
Makes sense. I mean,
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Yeah, especially, I mean, when you think about departments that are probably doing a lot of customer research, but might have to answer customer questions while they're on the phone, product and marketing definitely come to mind. Some teams look like they even have engineering, finance. So go ahead and share these results. So yeah, it looks like most people say product, but really across the board, tons of teams are involved in customer communications, which is crazy.
It definitely reminds me how like unique of a situation we have, since it's only mainly CX as well as the community managers, operations, and telemedicine. Maybe occasionally I think our marketing will reach out via like surveys and emails. I feel like that's very far and few between. So it's like, oh wow, this is so interesting seeing how other companies function like this.
And just totally highlights the importance of having product information somewhere that everyone can kind of find it or know where to look for it. Never want to be caught on a call and not know an answer, right? Yeah. Awesome. So Mariah, you mentioned that you essentially inherited Guru and then kind of went through this restructuring process. Can you tell us what that experience was like?
Yeah, so the initial person that was kind of set up and headed on the whole setup of Guru, he actually changed teams. And I was kind of in a way his replacement, because when he changed teams, then I was hired. And after getting trained up and everything, we noticed that Guru was a little unloved at the time. So I kind of took it upon myself, with the approval of our managers and team leads, to kind of just go for it. And I'm really glad I did, because it allowed me to kind of get everything organized. If you can't tell, I really like all the small details in organization. So doing that for Guru was a big feat, but it was so worth it in the end. And it really made me closer to the knowledge and allowed me to really get a deep dive of everything that we do, our products that we offer, and then some of the history of HIMSS. So I really enjoyed it. I know it's maybe not for everyone to just kind of inherit it the way that I inherited it. But I definitely wouldn't have had it any other way. I feel like if I would have done from the start, it would have been a completely different Guru. And I feel like having our setup is definitely the HIMSS story of, it makes sense where it was kind of thrown together and polished later on. So with that being said, we're going to kind of go into how I went about restructuring and reorganizing. So the first steps I took was getting feedback from our team. Since we are a remote team, and even back then we were still remote with the CX team, I needed to know how my team learns, how they interpret information the best. So I sent out a survey to our call center agents, since I can't just dial them up and ask them what's going on. And then I reached out to my teammates who I sat by. We were a small team in San Francisco, so it wasn't too many people, and kind of saw what they wanted to have and what they'd like to see more of. And then from there, I just went through and read all of our Guru cards, which luckily for my team was only either in like the mid 300s, the low 400s of cards. So it wasn't a ton compared to some companies. Like I know Guru has thousands of cards, which sounds absolutely terrifying to go through. But for us, it wasn't too bad. I decided that I just wanted to know everything so then I could categorize it. And then from there, I whipped out a pen and paper and I just started writing down the core things I wanted our collections to be. So, and then I power ranked them. So I made sure to put like, oh, product is like one of the most important things we have. We need to make sure that that's in line and everything's together and grouped from like hims and hers. And then along with any other relevant information when it comes to product, as well as then having like our policies and procedures, making sure to have kind of the boards I wanted grouped and written down. And from there, just kind of letting it spread all across my notebook. So I had something solid that I can go back to that I wouldn't forget. So the next thing I did was, well, I didn't do it as the next thing, but this was the most recent thing, thanks to my customer success manager. Shout out to Matt. I know you're on the call. As I wanted to make sure to clean up the tags. Tagging has made a world of difference for us, especially since we have the titles. When you search it, that's the first thing that's going to come up. I kind of got the information I needed from Matt, as well as the Guru Help Center, and just figuring out what was the most efficient way to tag. So instead of having 10 semi-relevant tags, we have 4 to 5 super relevant tags that help us pull up the information faster. And then I looked into our team settings. Since we do have people that aren't a part of CX, I did restrict some of their access, like none of them have editing access, because while they are always up to date on the information, they're not as close to the knowledge as we are. So I didn't want to have the opportunity for something to kind of go awry when switching up the card, updating any wording. I want to make sure to keep it to just kind of HQ. And another very overlooked, but I feel like it's really relevant piece is verification intervals. We have knowledge in Guru that's like, when did him start? Why did him start? Employee of the quarter, things that don't need verification all the time. So I made sure to set those to like yearly intervals, because otherwise I don't need to see the HIMSS origin story pop up every single month. That is not something I need compared to when we run tests and we have processes that are consistently being updated. That's when I want to see those popping up in my queue, but not necessarily having every single card pop up all the time. And then adding any extra information, examples or pictures. So this was probably my favorite part to do, was adding in any screenshots, step-by-step broken down for our team. We tend to have a lot of processes that don't happen super often, like I mentioned earlier. So having this like step-by-step, even with the screenshots alone, it's so helpful to see it. So it kind of jogs your memory instead of having to just read this paragraph or this long block of words. So that was really fun, as well as kind of adding in for like our product cards. They have our initial training for that. We have the FAQ page that is customer facing, and we have the product page. So it's easily accessible if a customer reaches out to us asking, hey, what's the deal with your shampoo? What are the ingredients? We can send them the card as well as tell them the information and let them know where they can find it. So it's all right there. You don't have to go searching. You don't have to waste any time with it. And it allows anyone on our team really to just be able to take over and give the information as needed. So getting into it, this is definitely, I feel you gotta get in the mindset. You gotta gather up your guru squad or just mentally prepare yourself and divide up the plan. So for me, I decided to kind of lead this myself. While I had a little bit of support from some of my other teammates, I had the most time, the biggest opportunity to really make this change. So get in that mindset, grab your plan and just kind of section out what you want to do. I did a little bit each day, along with like my normal duties, but it really made it go by so much faster rather than looking at it like, oh, I have this whole thing to do all at once. Oh gosh, it was so much better that way. And definitely ask for help from your account managers, your customer success managers, and the guru community. It was so helpful to kind of reach out to them and see what they were doing because they're always willing to help. And since they work with so many companies that use Guru, there's no one better. And they can always link you up with someone who has had a similar experience as you.
Awesome. I mean, what an important and huge job to basically be maintaining Guru by yourself. For the audience, we're curious how many people at your organization are maintaining your knowledge system, whether it's Guru or another tool that you use to kind of maintain company documentation. It's like okay, a group effort, more than 10. Wow. 2 to 5. Yeah, it looks like we're kind of all across the board. There's a couple teams that have just a few people. Some it looks like it's across departments. Wow. You can go ahead and share those results. Mariah, looks like you're kind of by yourself being a team of one, but definitely speaks to the incredible responsibility and importance of what you're doing at HIMSS and HERS. So that's awesome.
I also feel like it definitely comes into play since we're mainly CX. Like I would not be the one managing any of the finance things or any of the legal things. So it makes sense since we only mainly have all of our CX information and there anything relevant for our customers that there's only one. I think I said I did the poll and I said we had 2 to 5 since I have my little guru squad, especially when I'm not there. They hold down the fort and make sure to keep it together. Otherwise, sometimes it can go a little awry.
Yeah, definitely important to have kind of some backup there. All right. Cool. So obviously sounds like you had a great plan of action and did a lot of work to get Guru to where you wanted it and where it kind of fit your standards. I know something that's top of mind for everyone right now is the remote first world that we're all heading in, and your team has the experience of having, historically been remote first in some ways. Can you tell us a little bit about what it's like to kind of go through that revamping process with a remote first team in mind?
Yeah, so it was really important for us since while together I can always tap on the shoulder of my neighbor at the time. it wasn't like that with some of our call center agents, or even with our Canada team. You know, they start like 3 hours earlier than we do. So if they had a question about some, like, say, prescription transfers, I'm the person to ask about that. And if I didn't have a guru card about it, they would just have to wait until I got in and I noticed the message and I decided to finally respond to it. So it kind of delayed the information being shared. So having a remote team really makes you realize how important it is to manage all of your information, whether it be via emails, Google Docs, Guru, whatever you may use. Just having it up to date and making sure to keep an eye on it, because you never know when something important is going to come up and the person might not be available. They might be out with their kids or taking a lunch break, and you could need this information quickly. Like, our call center agents are on our live channels, and if they can't find the information right away, it causes a little bit of a less smooth sailing interaction with your customer. So that's definitely something I wanted to avoid, and that's why I've integrated it in Slack. I've definitely encouraged people to get the Chrome extension so that they have it right there at their fingertips, just a click away. So kind of going into why go through the hassle, I'm going to talk a little bit about why I found it so valuable for our team. So it makes the information super easy to find so that anyone who has access to our guru has access to any and all relevant information when it comes to our customers. So you can have operations when they come across an order that got maybe a little messed up at our partner pharmacy. They can quickly look into what they can do to fix it, or what they need to know about the customer. Any information that is up to date there, like, hey, you can customize it by going through these steps in your HIMSS account, which is not maybe something that's super common knowledge for someone that doesn't work with customers all the time. So having that available makes it so that anyone can be providing that great customer support, whether CX or not. So this is something I heard from my team, which I really appreciated, since it was a big effort, was you don't need to be on the CX team to provide amazing customer support. So one of my coworkers is on the community managers, and she works with our influencers. And although she was previously CX, she definitely didn't use some of the things we used to use a lot. So I remember one day she came up to my desk and was like, oh my God, Mariah, guess what? And I was like, yeah, what? She's like, I managed to do a replacement all on my own without having to bother you. And it was just really nice to see how, so excited she was to do it for herself, because that's always great when people are excited that they were able to find the knowledge and then execute what they needed. And it really was just a win-win, since the customer then was able to get what they needed right away without any type of delay. Because sometimes, especially right now, since we're no longer all in the same place, all in the same time zone even, you never know. Maybe I just clocked out for the day, so that customer's not going to get back until Monday when the holiday weekend's over. So it just allows for the knowledge to be sent out way quicker, and it allows for just people to not have to rely on the CX team, which I feel like is really great. And then if they still have questions, they can always reach out to us. It's not a big deal, but just kind of having that extra cushion of support for them. So getting information faster and having it accurate and up to date has definitely let us have happier customers. I've noticed since when I first started and I was chatting with customers, having this information come a lot faster rather than having to wait a few hours to maybe consult with my manager or reach out to one of my teammates in Canada. I don't have to do that as often. Very few and far between is that still an issue. So that allows for having like a much better customer interaction. Instead of having this spread out over a couple days, it's spread out through maybe a day. And then it's smooth selling from there, and it builds that relationship with your customers that's so important to have. And now, before it was always, oh, hey, I'm going to ask this person. now whenever people ask me, they usually think to themselves, did you check Guru? Because they know that's exactly what I'm going to tell them. And I know anyone on my team can vouch for that, because that's definitely like my most quoted thing. Did you check Guru? And I'll definitely be that person to like link that Guru card, send it their way, send that knowledge alert in case they forget, to just make sure that we're all up to date and keeping everything in sync, even if we're not all in the same place, all working from our own home offices now.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all that, Mariah. I think there's so many great tips in there on how to kind of optimize Guru for your team, but also just how to think about knowledge management and when it comes to equipping remote teams or distributed teams with information they need to provide those amazing customer experiences. So we have a couple of questions that came through ahead of time, but if anyone on the call today has questions for Mariah, we encourage you to use the chat to send those along, and we'll be excited to ask her some of those. So to get started, Mariah, can you tell us, throughout your cleanup process, were there any cards that you were the most proud of or most excited by?
Oh yeah, the cards I take the most pride in are definitely our product cards. I touched on it a bit earlier. Our product cards, since some of them are prescription, they have to have a lot of detail. So I have a formula set up for it, and I have where on the very top, it obviously is the title, so it's the name. And then I have the training, the product page, as well as the FAQ. And then from there, it has category, which you can find out on the website, price, can you transfer it out? Is it a prescription? Does it have a subscription with it? What's the cadence for it? And it has all those options, all the way down to ingredients, and then even the small tidbits of information. Like, we've come across very random questions for our products, but sometimes it leads us to find really important answers, like minoxidil. Something that rarely comes up is, but one time someone asked, can I use it on my cat? It's like, no, this is actually toxic for cats. So that's in the very bottom in a little section I call the more you know, like reading Rainbow. And it allows for like those small one-off situations that are relevant enough to know, since it's an important piece of information, but not super relevant, so it needs to have its own card and be really pointed out. As well as in the bottom, any relevant articles that we have in our, it's like our blog, are linked at the bottom, so that in case customers have question about like maybe what's finasteride versus minoxidil, we have that article on that page to quickly reference it, so they can get that information, share it with the customer, so that they don't have to go searching through our blog, which can be a little difficult at times.
Well, those cards sound lovely, and Mackenzie's even in the chat saying that you've done an amazing job formatting cards, and calls you their guru goddess. Love that title for you. We had a couple other questions come through specifically around Hims and Hers being direct-to-consumer brands. So first question was, what was it like to use a knowledge management tool as you were rolling out the Hers product line?
So that was a really interesting situation. I had just started a few days prior to launching Hers, and I know they did, the whole team did the training beforehand, and it was a Google Slides presentation that actually Mackenzie on the here actually did, and it came with a sheet of paper that you would fill out with the information, so that you could either reference it, and also just to kind of help that learning, since I know writing things down definitely help a lot of people when retaining information. So we went from that and then placing that into Guru to now when we roll out our products, it's a little bit more seamless. Like, I have a template for all of our new product cards that it will have any single piece of information you could possibly want in the card, even though it may not be relevant to the actual product, and just placing it in there. And it's a lot easier to update rather than having to go to a presentation that maybe not all the people are going to check. So it's definitely been a wild ride, and before then it was always Google Slides, but now we have a different learning management system as well as Guru that are more intertwined, and it just works out a little bit better, so that you can go from training to Guru and then Guru to training, so you can get that full circle of learning.
Got it. That sounds awesome. Another question regarding the direct-to-consumer world is, do you see a seasonal spike? And if so, how does knowledge management help you manage that?
From what I've seen, I haven't particularly seen a seasonal spike regularly. I think I think recently we've seen a spike with the shelter in place orders, but it definitely reminds me that like during times like this, I have to make sure that Guru's up to date. So letting our teams know like, hey, can you verify this information? Can you double check? Because there's going to be more people looking at it since there's more inquiries coming in, more emails, especially since we will be launching new things. Like we have our primary care in Spanish, so we have a lot more customers coming in from that. So we need to make sure everything's up to date, everything is ready to go, since we don't want to have to make the people wait as they're piquing their interest in hymns and they're looking into it as an option with getting their medication to their door rather than having to go out to the world to see it.
Mhm.
So definitely it really reminds you how important everything is, and definitely how Guru can be a team effort to keep up and maintain.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, what a time to be in telemedicine, right? Like,
It's been a wild time, honestly.
got it. So then we had a couple questions come through more around your side in terms of administration and the way that Guru is used throughout your team. So one question was, did you deal with any internal resistance to adopting Guru, and how did you overcome that resistance, if so?
I, from my experience, I haven't quite noticed it since the adoption was what predates me by quite a few months. But one thing I always noticed was our adoption rate inside Guru and the analytics. I noticed that it wasn't quite getting used as much when I was first starting to work there, because I know my team, while Guru was still kind of in that transition phase from the old owner to me, a lot of people just kind of ask your neighbor, just send a Slack. So since it's been revamped, I've noticed that people will use it more and they're adopting to it a lot better than before, since they know it's maintained daily, making sure that everything's up to date. And even if the card may not be verified, it'll definitely say like being worked on, updated, because there's a few cards there where we're creating processes for, and it's not like we can just create it overnight, unfortunately. So
Mhm.
they have the information where it's like, oh, this might change, but this is what we have so far. And they have those little tidbits letting them know what's going on. But I'm not quite sure how it was right in the beginning. But I imagine our team was really excited just to get this internal knowledge management system, because keeping track of emails is none of our team's strong suit. We get so many emails, and just keeping it all in one place where you can easily search without any random emails from teams that aren't even a part of us that we just got looped in on makes it so much easier. And it was just kind of an easy transition for us.
Mhm. Yeah, that makes sense. And to a similar point of, having lots of emails or just different places that information and knowledge are living, how do you capture content on the undernet, especially when teams that have those resources are remote or can be in different time zones or offices?
The undernet. Oh, I haven't heard that in a while. So I think having it. Wait, sorry. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so we ask, how do you capture content on the undernet, especially when teams that have those resources are remote or in completely different time zones?
I think just making sure communication is definitely the most important thing for our team right now. Since we span across three different time zones, it's really, or my team alone, I think our whole team, I don't even know. So many people went back home, but having that open communication about, okay, like this needs to be updated. Okay, we need to add this in, has been really helpful for us. While they have the resources, it's making sure to like actually put them into action, making sure that if there's any issues or questions, they bring it to our attention so that we can address them right away.
That makes sense. And next question was, what is the best way to run an audit while still completing your daily work? You mentioned that you spent a lot of time like kind of heads down on Guru. So how did you kind of manage that with your other responsibilities?
I'm very like I start my day very leisurely, but then I'll kind of schedule it out in my Google Calendar, because if I don't set aside the time for Guru specifically, I know sometimes it gets ran over by other priorities, whether it be making sure to spend time in our medical records, or making sure to reach out to the pharmacy for any questions for any patients. So kind of making sure to set that time aside. I definitely spoke a lot with my manager to make sure that it was okay that I was doing this, because sometimes you see Slack messages and it's like, everyone should be doing this. And it's like, but I need to do Guru stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of making sure it's okay with them, and then really putting aside the time. I always select Guru time to be later in the afternoon, because that's when I'm more focused and that's when I can really dive in and really make sure to like be as efficient as possible. Because in the mornings, even though I'm up, I'm still just like a little bit on a slower setting, rather than in the afternoon when it's the full swing. But yeah, like it was definitely a challenge. Luckily at the time when I did it, I was only trained on so much, so that I didn't have to be on any of our live channels. I didn't need to be doing anything else. It was just emails and Guru. So it was a different situation for me for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Spend some time with Guru once the caffeine's kicked in.
Yeah.
So similarly, once all that work is done, do you have scheduled ways or forums through which you talk to your team about knowledge management best practices, or does that happen more ad hoc as people are thinking of things to add to Guru?
I feel like for us right now, it comes like whenever it comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
Um, right now, since working from home, I feel like we're finally getting into the groove of things. We know what we need to be doing. So now I think I'm going to start kind of bringing it up, because while it is great to always go through it, sometimes I need another set of eyes to look through, because I'm so close to it that I don't always notice things. So like I'll definitely have like when I update a card about, say, a new product, I'll ask one of my teammates, like, hey, can you look through this, make sure it has everything you might want? Because
Mm-hmm.
while I think it has everything, it might not. It might just be like, oh yeah, my card's perfect. Why would there be any issues with it? But hopefully we're moving into like the more scheduled, more having set ways to talk about our knowledge management. Because right now it's more like, as it comes up, it's like, oh yeah, we'll talk
Mm-hmm.
about it.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like a good way to kind of figure out the internal best practices too. So that makes sense. So we have two more questions. There's a lot of excitement around the way that you took a look at tags and kind of, restructured those. Do you find that people are using tags to search more now? And if so, how did you get them to change their searching and tagging behaviors?
So I'm actually the one that manages the tags mostly, because sometimes I've talked about it, but I don't know if our whole team always knows that if it's in the title, it doesn't need to be tagged. So I'll kind of go through and edit them. But the way I kind of went around tagging was looking into the Guru Analytics about like what's being searched and what doesn't pull up results. So like for us, some of our internal projects have different names. So when we revamped our hair loss flow, it was called Medusa. So, and not everyone always knew how to spell Medusa. There's like extra S's in there, a couple different vowels. So one tip I learned from our customer success manager is that if you have the tag and it's misspelled and you link it or you merge it with the correct spelling, when you misspell it, it'll pop up the correct one. So like little things like that. And then just making sure to have, like you look up, what was it? We had military was a tag that I added to anything regarding APO addresses, which are military addresses, and like all of those, which wasn't in the title. So I was like, oh, this is definitely something that needs to happen because people are searching it, but it's not pulling up any results. And that was kind of what I went through for everything else. And then on another side was, if it had that internal project name, I would make sure to tag it with that, even if it was mildly related, so that when it came to, oh, we changed something during this process, I could just click that tag and search it. And kind of just letting people know that like, if you click a tag, then you'll show up all the cards that have that tag. And kind of just sharing those little tidbits, which I didn't know for the longest time. So I was really hyped on talking about tags for a while, as I'm sure Mackenzie can attest to, as she sat next to me during all of this. But yeah, it's, for us, it was just kind of, what are people searching that they're not finding results was the biggest factor for us.
Yeah, Mackenzie's here calling you tag lady, so sounds like you have it under control, which is awesome. And then last question for you is, do you have any parting advice for direct-to-consumer brands who aren't used to working distributed but are now finding that to be their reality?
I feel like having each other, like trying to up the communication. Like, I know for me, I can definitely go into like that. I don't have Slack open. It's just kind of, it's on the bottom, minimized. Don't look at it ever unless I get tagged in something. But kind of now having this new reality, making sure that I'm constantly checking it and keeping up with everyone, because while we all know what we're doing, it's always nice to be there for that added support. Like, hey, we have this situation going on. They want to order this, but this already processed. What can I do? So making sure to like hop in, be like, oh, hey, I can help out that. Or telling them where they can look to find these resources, who they can reach out to. I feel like just communication is absolutely everything for us right now, because otherwise we're just kind of stuck in our own apartments, houses, not knowing what we need to do to provide for our customers and give them the support that they need, especially right now too. Is there a lot of people, for us specifically, are looking into this newfangled process of telemedicine, so they definitely are needing a lot of support, more so than our average customer. So just keeping a unified front and supporting each other has definitely been super helpful for us.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Yeah, I can definitely imagine that's important now and always. Awesome. So we can go to the next slide, but thank you all so much for joining us for today's session. Mariah, thank you so much for sharing how your team is using Guru to equip your remote and distributed team. It was so great to hear how Hims and Hers is thinking about things and how you've been able to create an amazing Guru experience for your own team. For all of the attendees today, we want to encourage you to join our Slack community where you can connect with other Guru users, admins, and the Guru team directly. As we mentioned, we also have all of these sessions available on events.guru.com. So if you want to check out some of the other sessions or sign up for future ones, encourage you to go there. Oh, and actually those can be watched at remoteecon.getguru.com, but for other events and webinars, go to events.getguru.com. And Rachel's in the chat with the links to join the community. All right. Thank you all so much for joining us.